Hello, friends. Our 16th story comes from Phyllis McGinley. Now, Phyllis grew up in a large household. She had four sisters, and at the time of this story, her mom had just passed away. Her mom was 84 years old. She was a great mom. She doted on her daughters, on her husband. She was also an artist, so she sold and created and sold many paintings. And upon her passing, what happens sometimes with some families is that those who remain got closer, and so her sisters, they would meet and talk over dinner, and they would laugh and they would cry, and they would do as families usually do or should do when someone dies. But after a while, it came time to sell the house, and so it was time to clean the house out. And so all the sisters got together, and one of the wonderful things, that surprisingly really, was that there were no bitter disagreements about who got what. That the furniture, they made a decision on that. The jewelry, they made a decision on that. All of these things were divided very amicably. And so, of course, everyone kind of breathes a sigh of relief about this, because this is, quite honestly, this is unusual. Usually there's some problems with those types of things, but it did not happen in this case. And so they were kind of breathing a sigh of relief that they had managed to pull it off, and that even everyone agreed, even about the paintings, who got what painting. And and that remained the case until they went to clean the attic. And in the attic, somebody brought down the old nativity set. Now, there were a couple of different different stories within the family about how this nativity set came into their possession. It was nothing special, not at all. It was just a stable. It was made very simply out of simple dark wood. There was a double gate in the front. One of the gates was kind of lopsided. Sides were lopsided. It was nothing special, but of course, the sentimental value was just through the roof. And certain figurines were, of course, included, and then got added as time went on. And each of the girls, when they were young, would take turns every year, and they would set up this nativity. So it was really important to the girls. And so Phyllis wrote this: no one was prepared for the battle that would take place over that nativity set. One sister, Joanne, claimed it was the only possession that she truly wanted. And the other girls, surprisingly, kind of said, "Oh, okay, if you want it like that, you want it that badly, certainly you can have it." And so that worked out fine until one of the nieces found out. One of the nieces, her name was Mandy. And Mandy tearfully repeats this big story on the phone about how she had gotten a promise from her grandmother that the nativity set would go to her, and she was very emotional about it. But then, Joanne felt that her as a daughter, she had first dibs on that. And so the argument escalated, and it was really threatening to take the family apart. It was going to become a feud. Something had to be done to try to get that piece back that they had before somebody took down the nativity set. And so enter most families, and most family dynamics, they have a person who typically tries to be a peacemaker or to arbitrate. And in this family, it was one of the sisters named Eileen. But Eileen, it was going to be hard for her to do her normal role in terms of trying to get the two wronged parties into agreement, because she was dealing with her sister, Joanne, her own daughter, Mandy, and she was trying to do it while she was grieving her mother. But for a moment, as she thought about it, and she loved peace, and she didn't want to see all this happen, and she wanted to help her daughter and have that daughter the promise fulfilled. She wanted Joanne to be satisfied. So she thought, and for just a moment, her mind kind of cut through that grief fog, and she had a thought. She had an idea. And so the next day, she went down to the local lumber yard. She waited in line while contractors were in front of her, and they ordered massive amounts of lumber because they're building houses and whatnot. And so when it was her turn, and of course there's saws going on in the background and everything, she's got this tiny little stable, right? And so she brings it up to the guy at the counter, and the guy at the counter, he is young. He is really young. His name is Brett. He's got a crew cut. His name's just handwritten on his name tag. And so nobody's in. It's just her and Brett, and she explains the situation about this major, or the stable scene, and he lifts it up and he's like, "They're fighting about this," and she's like, "Yes, this is, you don't understand how big a deal this is." And so she explained to him, and she said, "Could you measure it, and could we get the lumber from you to maybe try to make a copy?" And he said, "Yes, that would be fine." And she said, "Leave it here for a few days. I'll take the measurements. I'll get you the lumber, and I'll call you back." So she left. She left it in the care of Brett. She didn't know if she could find somebody to make a copy, or if a copy is going to satisfy her daughter or sister, but it's the only solution she can think of. A few days later, Brett calls her back, says the order was complete. So she goes in the lumber yard to pick up the wood and the original, and she walks into the store, and she's just shocked because instead of the lumber there's just two identical stables. Brett had not only measured and cut the wood, he had taken it upon himself to create the copy as well. And so he took her through it. He began to explain, saying that, from what you explained to me about the situation, these two things needed to be as close as possible. So he says, I made on the copy, the gate is lopsided just on the original. And he took her through every ding and every flaw that this stable had accumulated through the years of being taken up into the attic and then put down and everything. And each one was lovingly and artistically recreated on the copy, every ding and flaw. It was identical. And that was enough for Elaine. She just lost it. She began to cry. And she said this, "You have no idea what this will mean to my sister and my daughter, the entire family." She said, "I don't care what this costs. Your work has saved the day." Brett charged $375 for materials. It wasn't much wood and nothing for the labor. He said, "I just wanted you to have a good Christmas." Brett, even though he charged nothing, he got a huge tip, perhaps involuntarily nonetheless. And one phone call later, the matter was happily settled. Mandy would get the old stable and some of the new figurines, fulfilling the promise that her grandmother had made her, and Joanne would get the new stable and some of the older figurines, so she would be satisfied as well. The problem was solved. Disaster in the family was averted because a young man who had never met any of them just wanted to give someone a better Christmas. Grace and peace to you, my friends. But don't forget the important things this season. Take care.